Hello everybody and welcome back to another retrocast. This time we got Nande versus Mesrine from 2014, I think October 2014, so quite old, and yet still some very high ranked gameplay, so this should be very nice. What you can also see, hopefully, if you watched the previous one, this is a different Once in Harbor. If you saw my replay against Yen, where I played Red Dragons and got my ass kicked, that's what I meant to say. The map had quite a different layout, but this was the original Once in Harbor layout. Delta is still more or less the same. I think it extends further to the left. Then there were like a zone was like here. There were like 4 zones after another there. The spawn was here, and there was a 2-pointer here or something. I don't fully remember, but yeah, the spawn and zone layout is quite different. And Mesrine, in case you don't know, was basically, as far as I remember, the first player to get to Field Marshal in Red Dragon. So, you know, at least around the time, I don't know if he still plays. At least around oh no, actually he does, under a different account though, I think. Still pretty decent. But playing Eurocore, which was, this was shortly after the Marder 2 was released, I believe. This is October 2014, and the DLC that included the Marder 2, the B5, JH7, Patriot stuff got like released relatively, I don't know, like around September, I want to say, maybe October. And like the Scandinavia DLC got released in beta in late 2014 and officially in January 2015. And Nande, in case you don't know, I played, for example, in the 2 vs 2 tournament in the Vulcan HG Gaming tournament with, and probably the player I learned the most from, not just when it comes to gameplay, but most, especially when it comes to like looking at units from a different angle, looking at their closest stats, you know, stuff like that. He was always like experimenting and trying new stuff. It didn't always work, but like he also found out like a lot of hidden stuff. Like the Crotal back in the for a while having 0.2 seconds aim time, which actually is quite massive. Got fixed on that unit, not on the not on the pivots. So yeah, he's playing Soviets. Soviets, I think around the time was considered a very strong 1 vs 1 deck, and then there was a time where it was considered pretty weak. And these days, it is, I think, still considered strong if you can pilot it properly, which not everyone can. So we have MTV, Shilka, and base. Shilka basically like the cheap AAPs back in the day. Let's take a look. Alright, Leopard 1-1 was not always a recon unit, by the way. This Leopard, as well as the base T55, only got rerolled, I don't know, with some patch. Maybe the Eastern Bloc patch in June or July, whenever that was, in 2014. So this used to be just a normal 25 point or 20 point, I don't know, tank. Got rerolled into medium stealth, good optics, just like base T55s. Hold up, might he be playing mech actually? I think he might actually be playing mech, because first I thought those were Jäger, but those might just be Heimatschützen. Marder 2 here. 10 front armor back in the day, of course. 10 front armor. I think, yeah, those are probably Panzergrens. Those are Jäger. So yeah, Eurocore mech, around the time, but I think especially during the release day, like much earlier even, was certainly considered meta. That much I remember. Although in 2014 I wasn't really playing a lot of ranked, and if I was playing ranked, it was 2 vs 2, but no 1 vs 1 ranked. So this is interesting. He's actually starting with the second CV, of course, because it's a fucking spawn. I mean, that spawn isn't quite important, I would say. Early 27 PU, basically still the same by the looks of it. Spätzens crew again also came with that second DLC. So there we have it, Heimatschützen and Panzergrens. Jäger at 10 point, only 14 AP, but still like 60% accuracy. And as you can see, 525 meter range, so did the Spätzens crew. The whole 700 meter range AT weapon thing in between 525 and 875 didn't really exist. Modschützen 90 with only 40% accuracy on the 24 AP. Modus 90. What, did they really come in B tier 80s? What an interesting choice. I mean, Mother Strikey, not Modritzen. Because a meteor 80 can be not too bad. You know, don't underestimate a meteor 80, 20% base accuracy, 2 front armor. You know, nothing to sneeze at. But like Mother Strikey 90 is just purely for like fast AT. Because Mother Strikey 90 were, from what I remember, even worse at fighting infantry than they are now. They were like really bottom of the pack. And especially if you have to deal with fucking, like, look at this MG3 rate of fire, right? 474, now Mother Strikey, 234. And you have to keep in mind, the accuracy, you already did get 10% accuracy bonus from your training. But rate of fire is, of course, the same on MGs, right? But there's not a lot of fire support, sort of BTR 80As and BTR 80s can fairly easily deal with those small infantry squads, especially since they're not even moving outside of the Jaeger. Now they're moving. SU-122s, 5 HE, great fire support. So of course what you want to do in this, if you're nande, you really want to try to catch him out in the open. And with those Batsnas here, you should be able to win those town fights. They really not the best micro, just everything unloaded in one spot, not really moving. This is still sitting there. This is also not unloaded. What's Nande doing? Nande is buying a second CV. Spetsnaz are just wrecking those panzer guns, not shooting with their launcher, because as you can see, they're so close to each other. I think this might be considered as CQC, I don't know, but or maybe it's just a minimum range of the RPO. But so yeah, the RPO just won't fire because of either the minimum range, or sometimes it's also just because if the unit would fire it at that close range, they would actually damage themselves. They all got panicked, presumably because the SU-122 called some of the transports out in the open. MTV, oh, this could get scary. There's one Mistral firing. Oh no, that's a Roland. The unknown radar Roland. BTR 80 killed the Leopard 1. I mean, Leopard 1 is have like no side armor, and even the front armor is pretty weak, so with that kinetic scaling, you can do quite some damage. And that's what I mean, right? Don't underestimate BTR 80s. They can be quite strong. And having, again, like I said in the cast of my replay, having this town under lockdown can be quite good. Even more so for Mesrine, but for nande as well, of course. Mesrine buys a Kasaipi, 35 points back then only. We used to be one of the prime helicopter rush helicopters. Heinz were of course also used, but I think especially early during the Dragon it was mainly Kasaipis. I guess, you know, because they're 35 points. MTV just watching out. There's a Shilka. I thought a Shilka. I'm not sure about that position. I don't know if this was intentional or not, but it just won't really fire in this angle. It will only fire if a helicopter is there, which may be intended so that the helicopter doesn't like spot when the Shilka is firing and can fire back, so that the Shilka is essentially firing into the back of the helicopter. I don't know. It's Spetsnaz here dealing with all these infantry squads. BTR-80 is still sneaking through, forcing the Heimatschützen to unload. You don't want Heimatschützen to walk, they're so slow. We're engaging again. More Strike 90 in the BTR-80. So such a, at least for these days, you know, such a weird choice. But, you know, like I said, back in the day, during this time, I wasn't particularly good. So, you know, bonus rank 90 is still more or less the same, if not even exactly the same, outside of course, the MGs having different stats. Also, AKs, 40 points back then, they were really nice. They're still pretty good, but at 40 points, they're quite something. VDV 90, 875 meter range. Oh yeah, hold up. Panzergrunts 90, 875 meter range, but 22 AP, you know? These days they have 700 meter range and 24 AP. What is better? Probably 875, honestly. Because in Eurocore you still have the Erics for that high AP. So having that extra range can be really nice for side shots. At and Dart, I think these days they're 45 points. Yeah, it seems like they're unchanged. Pretty cheap. But also AKs are pretty far back, and then I didn't move them up. But I can't really fire them. But he still has that PO. Gets one. gets 1. Wow, that was pretty unlucky, honestly. CH-53G with Fallschirmjäger 90, or base Fallschirmjäger, but I assume Fallschirmjäger 90. Spetsnaz are basically out of ammo. You don't see that every day. Also, again, oh no, Nande is actually playing with the fob. This much I am fairly certain on was pretty rare. Because I remember when I played and started to become decent at ranked and was around like Brigadier General, back when it actually meant something. Even Soviet players that I saw didn't really play fobs. Maybe Nande probably was an exception. I also remember him having a fob as well as 2 cards of supply trucks in his Soviet deck, so he could, on maps where it didn't feel like it, not start with a fob, but still have access to 2 cards of supply trucks if he needs a lot of supply. So that was truly Galaxy Brain. Oh, those modern one VDVs just getting called out in the open. Doesn't the Marder 2 has 1.5? Does it have 1.5 AG today? I honestly don't remember. I should remember these things, but I don't. I think it might. Ron getting shot at by this crash hits. Not really the best micro here. You don't want your Roland to sit in the town either, because then it doesn't really have a line of sight. You either want it behind the town or like, yeah, behind the town, really. Or at least put it somewhere where it doesn't get shot at by stuff that's driving onto the road. Urals resupplied those Spetsnaz. More SU-122s, again they're really amazing for fire support. Another CV coming in. T-72A already had medium optics back then. It's a really nice tank. 8 RPM. Doesn't it have 7 RPM? Don't like only later T-72s get 8, like the T-72B1s and B. I'm pretty sure today it is only a 7, so this is interesting. This is quite interesting. And it was auto-loaded already at this time, keep in mind. And that's again Mirage 2000s. KWS was honestly never used up until it got the veterancy buff together with many other ASFs. The veterancy buff to 2 at veteran, which it now has. Oh, and back in the day, you could also like fly your plane just as far out as you want, right? This also only got changed later. So if you tell your plane to fly here, it flies like into this area and then just turns back in without you being able to control whether it does so or not. When the strike in CQC against Heimatschützen should win, but those M103s are just opening fire on the Spetsnaz and Nande doesn't realize. Sometimes, so this is something that still happens, where every now and then your infantry has range and line of sight on an enemy unit, it just doesn't fire. If you don't get fired back upon, that's not as big of a deal. But like if in a situation like this you get fired at and you just don't fire back even though you can, that is quite annoying. Nice to fight K 59 from Nande though, because obviously he saw the CH-53G, which as you can see got shot down by the Shilka. K-52 here as well. Did have medium stealth already, I think always had. Igla V, I think it used to have base Iglas. The K-52 and the K-50 only got the Igla V relatively late. Going on strike, opening up on the Marder 2 and missing. Subetten Dart, only at 1 missile. Osa's firing on the Mirages. Oof, and getting both. I think this was a double tap on both Mirages. So that was nasty. But for 80 points you got such good AA coverage. But despite all the efforts, against Zero Mag, you're gonna have a rough time as Soviets. But at least he had Spetsnaz. Not a pinging to... Oh yeah, because he saw that his K-52 got hit by those Fallschirmjäger 90. Those Terminators. They were crazy, let me tell you. They used to be even more crazy. In beta, I believe, they had 80% base accuracy on their G11 with such a high rate of fire. That was just... yeah, something else. Some of this stuff is still not unloaded. Those pentagrams are moving, but the other 2 squads of Heimatschützen are still not unloaded. Also, currently no defense or ice whatsoever on the on the sea. I don't think those Beds and Screw will be able to spot very far if they have even line of sight onto the water. You're running out of fuel. Only had 100 seconds of time over target. The whole fuel and time over target got standardized at some point. I don't think it was back then. Where basically your time over target is just a function of however much fuel you have, I believe. So that basically every plane uses the same amount of fuel it has per second. Back in the day, I guess it was all over the place, and I guess it kind of makes sense. I don't think every plane in the world uses the same amount of fuel to stay in the air, but I think for gameplay purposes that is fine. Another CH-53G. Is the K-52 hovering high? I was just checking, because if it was hovering low, obviously he wouldn't be able to spot a whole lot. It's a bit unfortunate that Nande felt like he had to buy K-52 basically for defensive purposes here, because it is quite expensive. But sometimes, depending on what deck you play and what map you're playing on, you don't really have much of a choice. There's so much forest. It might just be better than just spamming like BRDM 3s everywhere. Spelta's moving up again. Shooting at... I don't know what they're shooting at. Heimatschützen? Oh no, this is Sapeurs. Pentagrams as well. There's the other two Speltan squads. More gonna strike you for defensive purposes. Probably to deal with stuff like Mara 2s that are out here in the open. You don't really need a lot of vehicles, as you can see on this map. But SU-122s are great because they're cheap. So, you know, they're not... It's not like 180 point tanks that suddenly gets deleted because of a side shot, but still offer like amazing fire support for their price. And as you can also see, you know, it's just hard to make use of them, right? When they're so deep in the town, you can't really make good use of fire support on this map, which is why stuff like Spetsnaz were so important for decks like Soviets. Because as it is today, they really rely a lot on fire support to deal with infantry. And CQC fights in big towns, it's just not what you want. Especially not against a deck like this that has access to veteran 10-point Jäger. And... oh, I completely forgot. Pentagrams were 15 fucking points. And Pentagrams 20 points. 15-point Pentagrams. That was even worse than 10-point Jäger, I think. Actually, even worse. Like, Modschützen are great and all, right? But like, imagine if Modschützen had a battle rifle and the best MG in the game by a large margin. Now that is something else. I completely forgot about that. If Jäger were 10 points today, it would be pretty broken. But if Pentagrams base would be 15 points today, that would be something completely... oh, it would be just so... honestly, might be like... would quite possibly be the balance-wise the most broken thing in Wargame, outside of like helicopters, but that's arguably more in terms of mechanics, less balance. But like... oh god. Like... granted, back in the day, the base Panzerfaust 44 only had 525 meter range and 14 AP. But what you also have to take into account is that the MG3 was just so much better than any other MG. Right now, the Mini-Me is basically the best MG, followed by the MG3. And then the next MGs like RPKs, RPK-74, they're certainly worse, but like, they're still formidable. They you know, if the Pentagrams, you know, are like only, I don't know, 6 men or something, or like 7 men, we will still win, probably. Or if the Pentagrams, you know, it's not like the VDV or something are like completely blown out of the water, but just by like 2 Pentagram men or something, right? But like back in the day, the difference was like day and night, from what I remember. Even after it got nerfed after a while, but it was still by easily the best infantry squad. More Fallschirmjäger 90 being flown out here, that's crazy. I don't know if Nande noticed, but Mesrine certainly noticed this Spetsnaz crew. Fallschirmjäger 90 seems like they want to go in here. So this is this is why having control of this town and also paying attention is quite important. Because if you lock down this bridge, of course, you, outside of amphibious units, you basically protect this whole forest here, right? And another Etendard. I mean, even if the Spetsnaz crew would have stayed here, they might have actually survived, because Etendard is just has so little payload. 4 Scott of Modest Rake in 90. MTVs being used here. Mistral there. The Roland died at some point, probably because it was out in the open. So not a lot of AA, so the MTVs can't really do some work here. It's just a matter of getting angles, and oh boy, there we go. Yep, there we go. Getting good use of out of those MTVs. And Mesrine just apparently not caring that he's getting fired at. So now it does definitely realize they are the Fallschirmjäger 90, and the Dragunov barely being able to shoot at those Fallschirmjäger 90. I don't know for how long. He needs like 2 more shots. Oh, I can't quite finish him off. So he definitely wants to move those AKs or try to kill the Fallschirmjäger 90 with the MTV. Could be possible. You know, you have 1 front and 1 side armor, so that those Fallschirmjäger 90 won't do too much damage, but they can still crit you to death. Almost Rake 90 is still hanging in there against Sappers and Heimatschützen. I don't even know why you would Heimatschützen in this scenario, honestly. For one, you have fucking access to 10-point Jägers. I don't know why I say Jägers, the plural is Jäger, right? 10-point Jäger. But also, Heimatschützen are good for sponging damage and such, but I think in this scenario it'd just be better off to, you know, buy Jäger, because you only have so many towns you can have infantry in. It can shoot at the Spetsnaz, right? And if half of those towns are like filled by Heimatschützen that have no DPS, like sure they sponge damage, but you're better off if you just have Jäger that can, you know, that are still cheap enough where they can just sponge damage, but also like fire back at Spetsnaz and shit. Gepard A2, only 4 stingers. But other than that, more or less the same, I believe. More fight. He did 1 squad got killed by the NSVT on the MTV, so that's nice. I think he definitely should move the Spetsnaz crew back into this town, or this one, so he can have line of sight on this bridge again. Although I guess what Mesrine can do is just unload here and walk over this bridge, or just straight up unload on the other side of the river. While being put to decent use, you know? Given that he's not even using artillery. Oh yeah, I completely forgot to mention the Akula. Also medium stealth, by the way. It doesn't have medium stealth anymore. I think I've said it in a recent replay. Might have been that 4v4 on Korea Rocks, whatever it's called. 2,975 meter range. Not a lot of accuracy, I believe it has more now. But you know, 26 AP, and that range can be quite nice. And the KA-52 and the K-50 was like a doom combination against any West German player, i.e. me. Because, you know, having no radar, having no non-radar AA, having no long-range anti-helicopter AA like the Crotal, and being just bad at the game on top of that, meant that those 2 KA-50 and K-52 could just shut me down very easily. Let's see, ammo box hit, so you lose half your ammo. And another ammo box hit, so you lost the other half of your ammo. See, they didn't even deal the full, not a delta bit of damage, I think maybe because they hit the rear of the, oh, it even has armor there. Well, they're slowly but surely dealing damage, but yeah, they will just crit you. Like, elite squads will just crit you to death, even if you have armor, right? That's why you need a Hind with a Yak B. There's a Hind. M24B, 90 points only, so that's not too bad for 90 points. These days it's 100 points. Assault here as well with the Kyler. Was already auto-loaded at this point. VTS 1 was not auto-loaded. I think these days it is auto-loaded even if it has only 6 RPM. Gepard 2. There's a USC, honestly pretty dangerous. There's like 2 Gono squads that are both half dead, or like 90% dead, I guess. Holding this. The Acula does outrange the Gepard, which is cool. But it's not still holding in there, just being resupplied constantly, so Nande really hasn't lost a lot of them. Was very good at keeping them alive, but there's just so many Jäger coming in. Those are more Motostrelki. I guess at this point he might be out of infantry, but this is such an interesting card. And with interesting, I mean, I don't like it. That's a Spetsnaz for this forest, I assume, to deal with those Fallschirmjäger. I don't know why I can't talk. I just got up like half an hour ago, or 20 minutes before starting this recording. So if I sound a bit sick or anything like that. There's a Fallschirmjäger unloaded, but not moving. You gotta get them moving. They take a couple of minutes to get into position, you know, and it's over half of the game is over already. Now we see assault with Motostrelki coupled with the Spetsnaz. I assume he buys these just to have like AC in this town, or like to deal with vehicles that the Spetsnaz can't deal with. Oh, are those Panzer guns getting called out? Oh no. Oh, this is just sad. Oof. Yep, that's what 5 HE does to you. Last bit of defense is gonna die here. MTV trying desperately to kill some Heimatschützen with the MG, but oh, and those Fallschirmjäger are moving up to the OSA AK. I think Nande, after having his K-52 nearly killed, didn't anticipate those Fallschirmjäger to move up there. It's gonna be... Ooh, it's gonna be close. Maybe he doesn't move them just yet. Does he spot the CV? He does not. There was a Motostrelki 90, excuse me. Not Spetsnaz in the BTR here. PU. Just circling around. Found it interesting of Nande to buy a PU this early on. I mean, right in the opener, right? I don't know if he like knew Mesrine's playstyle or like and expected him to buy planes early on, but it's just such a heavy investment. That sure he killed some Etchendarts, but he didn't buy it as a reaction, right? He bought it as a precaution, which with such a big investment and as a unit that is basically meant to counter something that the enemy might in theory not even buy, quite an investment. So I just gotta assume that he has played against Mesrine before a couple of times, and Mesrine was buying planes very early on or spamming them even. The only explanation I have. But finally in MR24D. I think this could have helped a lot against dealing with those Fallschirmjäger, but then again, at the same time they could have been also critted to death that easily. Mistral misses its last missile. K-52 kills the Gapper, so there's no AA, at least in the area here. What? Oh, never mind, I'm fucking blind. There's another Mistral squad. Ignore what I said. Fallschirmjäger die, however. Scratch it with VDV coming in. More Urals to resupply those Spetsnaz. Kyler misses his supply truck, which is not a big deal since it was nearly empty anyway. Let's take a look at the FOB. Oh my god, no artillery whatsoever and the FOB is nearly empty. And I don't believe the Aquila has been resupplied as well, because those ATGM missiles are of course expensive. But it doesn't look like the Aquila was resupplied. Those Fallschirmjäger still sitting down there, doing nothing. Spetsnaz got some missiles or some RPO shots off on the Führungsgruppe by the looks of it. But now those Marder 2s and a Kyler will keep them pinned down. Some additional OSA AKs. I'm not sure how necessary this is, given how many Ettendarts he killed already. But I don't know what other planes Mesrine has in his deck. Maybe he has the ideas. Maybe he has a Napalm Mirage. This is where honestly, this is where a bomber would be great. Mesrine has like no AA other than the Mistrals, and you kill a Gepard. An SQ-24 ammo like this town would certainly do a lot of work. He's MT2B coming in, 95 points. But other than that, it's basically as it is today, just 5 points more expensive by the looks of it. 8 RPM, 15 accuracy, 40 stab, 18 AP, 15 front armor, 4 top and rear armor. Who does? Yeah, he spots them already. Still just sitting there out in the open. You don't want to forget about this. This is 55 points per squad. And of course, the 20 points are basically useless, mostly, after you unload the infantry. But like, you still paid so much to get them here. And hey, look at the sound. There's a different sound than it is today, right? Oh no, it was just the sound when you're... No, then it was the AP rounds. It fired AP rounds at the landed helicopters, right? That's why it's not different. There's apparently back then, I don't know if it got fixed, a different sound effect for the AP gun of the K-52. Interesting. Irrelevant, but interesting. Here again. You hear the sound? It's like a VAB T20 or Mara 1 sound, right? And now let's see if we can listen again if it fires at infantry. It's completely irrelevant, but I just find it interesting and a bit fascinating. MI-24V moving in. I guess I had enough of just sitting on the flank doing nothing. CV got killed here because I was too busy paying attention to some defenseless units getting killed. Fob is nearly empty. Those Betsons have been eating supplies like nothing. And Nande is still just, I don't know, like barely winning on the ground here. Despite like resupplying them so much. Whereas I don't think Mesrine has bought a single supply truck this game so far. Just tells you about like the stack and the playset. You just keep spamming MP3s, you know? Just unload them in the town and let them work on their own and just attack with everything else. That's all the stack is. It was quite brain dead. MiG-27 going for Leopard and lost line of sight. Roland didn't hit. I wanted to just easily with those Pentagon's 95% accuracy kill the B tier ADA. Now there's some tonks. There's still at least one super attendant. I don't remember if you get 2 or 3. I think you get 3. Though maybe you only got it later on. There's a 24M. Man, I used to be so envious of this bomber. I think it's still a decent bomber. But these days I think players have a lot more AA and ASF coverage than they might have back in the day. At least some players. Nande still has like some great coverage when it comes to planes, but Mesrine clearly doesn't. So bombers, I think, tended to be a bit more effective than they are now. Or how should I put it? Tended to be getting out alive more often than now. It's maybe a better way to put it. So the 24M was like, I don't know if it was called, I would call it gold standard, but like it was pretty good when it got buffed during those 30 bombs, or considered pretty good. But of course these days you just don't see it that often for multiple reasons. Oh, and there we have a late game healer rush. How interesting! And a Jaguar AC. Quite a dirty playstyle. Not unlike what I tried on this exact map from this exact side, with a different deck and with a different map layout. Oh, never mind, he surrenders. I didn't see this coming. I did not pay attention to the timer at the bottom at all. Honestly, quite an interesting match given the fact that it's on fucking Wonsan Harbor. I think really what won the game for Nande here was just the micro and keeping the micro of the Spetsnaz and just keeping them alive, right? Having them shoot all their fucking RPO arrays, pulling them back, letting the enemy just chew on 4 stacks of Modus Reiki while resupplying those Spetsnaz and then just moving them back forth to the front again. You saw, like, he didn't use a lot of helicopters, right? But he used a lot of fucking supply to keep those Spetsnaz alive and resupply them, and it worked. It worked. It worked pretty well, in fact. The SU-122s and such helped a lot as well, I think, because they were basically never contested. They were sitting there for a long time. They couldn't always get line of sight in there, but when they did, boy, did they deal some damage. There was so little AA from Mesrine that there were multiple times where MTVs dealt a lot of damage as well. So yeah, basically all Mesrine did was just spam MG3s and for some reason Heimatschützen in the town and let them die. One thing I feel I wanna hold up. I want to quickly just very shortly reopen the replay. So I want to check something. I want to check. Also, I forgot to mention. Yes, the game is in Italian. Don't ask me why. It's a meme. I should have mentioned this right away, but I didn't even realize. Oh no, it is not in Italian. When you load an old replay. Oh, interesting. Never mind then. Never mind. I wanted to check what armor the AMX-13 has, the transport, because I think it might have had only 1 armor, and it certainly got buffed to 3 armor in the Israel patch, where a lot of IFVs and APCs got their armor changed. But I wanted to know if it had like just 1 armor or maybe 2 armor back in the day. 1 armor, okay, interesting. So spamming reservistes would have done just as little then. That's all I wanted to know. Well, game is not in Italian, in fact, either because there was no Italian localization back then, or because old replay files always have like an English. I don't know why or how, but whatever. Hope you enjoyed the replay, and yeah, there's more to come. I have a lot of replays from Nande, from other players. So this should be very interesting. I'll try to not spam them out at once. I know there have been a lot of them recently, but they're also just easy ones to record. So yeah, hope you enjoyed it, and I'll hopefully see you next time.